Well, hello everyone. It is Friday, December the 29th, 2023. I am Delbridge, Benchmark Realty, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. This is your year-end 2023, looking forward to 2024 status chat. Now, we have to take care of this and we'll be right back. If you like this content, please go to CallDelToSell.com, find the tab that says on YouTube, click it, and it'll open up a page of QR codes. There you can use a smartphone to scan and get to the YouTube page, or you can just mouse over and click it on a PC. There you'll be able to subscribe to this little button over here and click the notification bell so that YouTube will notify you when each Friday's blog has been uploaded. Thank you. Much of what we've heard in the last week has been the Fed hit top high on the Fed rate, top Fed. It's going down from here. Lower mortgage rates for everybody, a little bit like Oprah. You get a low mortgage rate, you get a low more. Everybody gets a low mortgage rate. Everything's going to be great. But is that really the case? Now, I'm going to give you a tool when we get to the Beige Book where you can look and kind of see some of the idea for what's coming up so it won't be a big surprise. Just getting it right out there. My biggest fear for 2024 is that we hit stagflation. That we haven't heard unless you've been around since 1980. And that's a combination of high inflation and high unemployment. I think I see a way that we can get there and avoid that. So I think that's very positive, but you need to know about what that is and how it can happen. When the group of people that shut down our economy for whatever the election or whatever they were doing, they killed off production in our nation for a number of months. Most of the year was all messed up. Some of us were told that we are not essential employees and we don't matter, and we didn't get to go to work, and it messed with our abilities to earn a living and pay our rents and our mortgages, and it just messed up our lives. Well, that portion of the year that they were holding back people from working caused a dip in our GDP. So the response was, well, if we slowed down the economy and we don't have as many goods, we better kick out a bunch of money out there into the world to stimulate our economy and to get things going again. That would be a case of quantitative easing, the printing of the money for purposes of getting an economy going when we have high unemployment. The result of that was high inflation that kicked on about a year later. So we've been doing quantitative tightening. The Fed has been doing, which I don't know that they've ever done it before on this scale. But the idea was to get that inflation down. And the way they do it, as you know, is they raise the cost of money. We think about it in terms of mortgage rates or credit card rates, but it's really the cost of money in the economy. They raise that to choke that economic activity off. Now, what happens is if we get too froggy in 2024 and they try to drop the rates too quickly before inflation comes down to 2%, it'll be too high, and then they'll start doing the money printing thing again, and that'll speed inflation up, but they'll do the money printing because unemployment's high. So if that doesn't, then that money doesn't stimulate employment, then we still end up with too high of employment and too high of inflation, because now we have more money chasing the same amount of output. And that's the definition really of inflation. So we could get in that stagflation. I'm going to show you some things right after we go to the screens, which will say, I don't think we're an immediate threat of that. So I think that's a good thing. Let's look over here at the center panel. A lot of these sales guys, it's all about the mortgage rates. And it is to a large degree because we pay principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And taxes are going up. Insurance is going up because inflation is making the house worth more. The value goes up, so that makes the taxes cost more. And with the principal being forced down because we then have higher interest rates, we actually can afford to buy less house. But the theory is if it's all about the mortgage rates, we should see an impact when the mortgage rates came down, right? So that's the point. If the mortgage rates come down, we expect to benefit from it. So as mortgage rates or Fed rates coming down, is that a sign of a good thing or a bad thing? And the reality is it kind of depends. There's an old expression that says when the Fed raises the target rate, it's a bad day. And when the Fed lowers the target rate, it's an even worse day. We're about to see if that works. So there we are. Our mortgage rates were peaked about, October 10, 20. So that's October before November, and we've been coming down about a percentage from 8% to 6.25%, 6 5/8, or I guess that is. Now, here's November sales from NAR. Let me slide up here to the top. National Association of Realtors, November 2023, pending home sales remain flat. And here we see typically as we go into winter, we should slow down, but we actually picked up. But we've been downhill on the index since February. And here we are, even though the interest rates on the mortgages dropped, doesn't look like anyone took advantage of it. So let's get on to the Beige Book to see if you know what that is. Let me reset my page. Here we are. To my understanding, that we get one of these reports built and presented so that they're available before the Federal Reserve Systems Committee comes together to discuss economic conditions. I think they put these things together. This one was done November 29th, ready for the December meeting that they had. And it's just a summary of economic activity. This is called the Beige Book. So you want to look that up because you can see great things in it. It starts out at the very top of the Beige Book with the national economy kind of described, about a paragraph for each one of them, kind of an executive summary type thing. And then you get into highlights by district. These are the banking districts. We're in the 6th district. We're in Atlanta. So you can kind of run through this and you'll see kind of a mixed bag of these. And I don't know how much of this you need me to read, but it'll talk about this as top line. On balance, economic activity slowed since the previous report, with 4 districts reporting modest growth, 2 indicating conditions were flat to slightly down, and 6 noting slight declines in activity. And so it gives you that all over the United States summary. We can go to the labor markets. This is nationwide. Demand for labor continued to ease. So we're not having high unemployment, but we're easing up on it. Prices on labor, your compensations are going down a little bit, not necessarily decreasing, but the pressure to raise them because of inflation is coming down. Let's look at Atlanta. This is our little mini district here, a little mini summary. Economic activity grew slightly, so we're still better than some. Labor markets cooled and wage pressures eased, so it's not going to be as easy to go demand a 20% raise. Some non-labor input costs, mostly in construction, decreased. Retail sales softened. New auto sales remain strong. I posted something on Facebook about that. Used have begun to come down a little bit. New cars are still high. Leisure and group travel were solid. People still like to play and party. Here's something that may be interesting to you. Housing demand slowed. St. Louis, multifamily in particular, seeing projects delayed or canceled due to high rates. See, we're going to start seeing things in here affecting real estate. Chicago and real estate activity decreased slightly. So you have the ability, if you read the Beige Books, to see kind of what the committee is going to see. Some of the stuff they're looking at, we're seeing labor soften. Some are still growing a little bit. Some of the markets are still growing. Some are down. It's kind of a mixed bag. We're seeing real estate being weakened a little bit. And we see some things like energy still staying strong. Still prices are still going up. But you get an idea. It's not just mortgage rates, mortgage interest, mortgage insurance. It's not about a mortgage. You got to feed your family. You got to have a car. You got to have insurance. These are things, and it's the big picture. Now, let's go to this multigraph that I have set up. This happens to be 5 things. The blue line, if you can zoom in, you can see this. It says 10-year Treasury -2, the 10 -2. That's the blue line. That's the one that we see inverted down here, because the 2 now is higher than the 10, and so that's causing problems. The charge-off rates on credit cards is the red one. That's the default. The green are the consumer loans, and you can pull some individual articles up on that. They're starting to see higher fault rates on credit cards. And the purple, unemployment. The teal kind of looking color, at least it is on my screen, 30-year mortgage rates. All right, so what are we seeing? I want you to notice the pattern here, because there's something good out of this, believe it or not. Before the recession of 2021, what did we see? We saw the 10 -2 go negative. Over here, before the 2008 recession, we see it go negative there. We see before the 2000 recession, it almost went negative. But what really caused that one was that high unemployment rate. So we see a trend. If you look at the charge-off rates, the red and the green, they start going up before the recession and go way up in the recession each time. All right? We see the only thing that comes down pre-recession is the mortgage rate, the 30-year fixed mortgage rates. Now, I heard on the radio today that we're at a 27-year low for refis. So if people were going to be able to refi to pay off that credit card and those revolving credit debts, it's not likely to happen because the rates are quite as high as they are. But you see the trend. All but mortgage rates are going up before a recession, And what comes down is when it's headed towards a recession. So looking at this graph, what do we see in 2008? We didn't see that much with the mortgage rates, but we see massive amounts of credit card failure and revolving credit, commercial bank, and we see the unemployment go through the roof. So looking at this side, the now, the here and the now, how does this compare to that? Well, we see one thing. We are negative with the 10 minus 2. We see the red and the green, the charge-off rates are headed up. That would be indicating a recession. The inversion yield curve is giving us recession indication. And the blue line being 30-year rates on the mortgages, they have just now started to dip. But they were looking good, kind of being contrary to that pattern of right before a recession. Look at unemployment. Unemployment, though, being the purple thing, kind of flat like it was ahead of 2008. So it may not be as strong of an indicator as it was back in 2001, back in this year, because it was flat and then it sharply went up. And that's part of my concerns for the economy after about the 6 months in Q3. If we could just get 2 more quarters, 6 months of bringing that inflation down with the quantitative tightening, the QT, that the Fed is doing, which will probably mean we won't see a rate cut by the Fed until the third quarter, which is what the Atlanta person said in one of their recent statements. We're not even looking at till at least the third quarter. If they can hold off to get that inflation under control before unemployment trips on them, we'll be in good shape. It'd be great if we never have the unemployment kick up. But if it kicks up too far, they're going to start printing money and they're going to pivot like some people say they did. They haven't pivoted yet till they actually change. But they could, and they're pre-warning the markets that they might pivot. Here's the problem. It could really upset the stock market. The equities market could really have a bad go of things. So I think we've got a good 6 months in front of us before anything really drastic starts to happen. But we should be prepared for it because now we got 6 months to get ready. Hello, I'm Delbridge of Benchmark Realty, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. If you are currently unrepresented and would like to know how to compare up to 3 properties side by side and room by room, then go over to my new YouTube channel, CallDelToSell. That's 1 L and Del, no spaces. Watch the demo on Real Scout, and then call me and we'll set up your exclusive ad-free account today. Last week, 12/22/23, we had 19,762 opportunities. It was down over the previous week. We had 2976 in the under contracts still showing. That also decreased just a tad. And yet the energy ratio between those two numbers stayed the same at 15%. Today, 12/29/23, we had 19,321 in the opportunities, decreased slightly. 2941 on the under contract still showing, decreased slightly, and the integer value, the ratio between them remained unchanged at 15%. So I think you've gotten some information in this. I hope it wasn't too jumbled in its presentation. We could have anything from a banking crisis to stagflation to a soft landing, although I don't believe in soft landings. I think if we can hold off long enough before we drop that Fed rate down, we can maybe get the inflation down below 2%. Because as we generally see, when the Fed drops the target rate, it's to spur the economy on because something bad's about to happen, and that bad thing would be a recession. But recessions fix inflation. Unfortunately, you need lots of free money to fix the devaluation or the deflation. When we're selling the same thing cheaper than ever before, we as consumers might think that's great. But to the producers, that could be very, very bad and lead to even more unemployment. So where are we going from here? I think it's better shape than some economists say, and I don't think it's as rosy as yet others predict it to be in the future. So keep your eye on unemployment in particular, and maybe realize that it doesn't do much good to drop the Fed target rate down and mortgage rates to go down if the whole balance of the economy is a mess, or if banks won't loan the money, because you have to have just some really, really high credit score and a lot of cash to get a loan, which is kind of the situation we saw in 2010. Prices fell because they just couldn't find enough buyers. So we had a glut of houses and not enough buyers. We may have a lot of people still wanting houses, but if they can't get a loan, most of them are not really in the market. So we actually have higher inventory than it may seem, just simply because we've had so many buyers fall out from eligibility. So not the greatest year-end special, but it should be truthful. And I don't think that we really need to hang our hat on a lot of these prediction people are putting out there. Read the Beige Book, become familiar with it, and you'll know a little bit more about the banking, what people are thinking in the various bank situations. We're in Atlanta, maybe you're in St. Louis or some other place. You do you, we'll do us, and we'll meet you down at the fishing hole someday. Appreciate you. Thank you. Have a great new year.